They told me to clock in under the freezer that says ice, like the word is a kind of chapel. Sunvale Junction, exit 178, sits in the middle of the kind of nowhere that insists on itself, high desert, the interstate droning like an endless sermon. I pushed through the sliding glass doors at 11:58. The chime did that two-note ding, like a polite cough. Diesel sat in the air. Coffee had burned itself into something bitter and brown sugary. The neon along the canopy outside flickered. Pink, then dead, then pink, and the sodium yard lamps breathed that tired yellow onto everything. My lips were already cracking. I tasted dust. That's the push. I started. Lori, the manager, met me with a chain of keys and a cardigan that looked like it had more nights than most people do. She slid a laminated card on the counter facing me. Sunvale Night Rules in clipped, all caps. 5 bullets, short and stupid. Stupid keeps you alive. Her voice was flat. Camp rules. Rule number 1. Do not be under the canopy at 12:30 a.m. Rule number 2. If the PA uses your name, do not answer. Stand under the ice letters. Rule number 3. Never go into motel room number 17. Rule number 4. If the jukebox changes tracks at midnight or off schedule, you leave the diner immediately and do not check the chrome. Rule number 5. During night audit, if your signature's already there, you leave it. You do not overwrite. I read them twice. I wanted the money, and the hours, and the quiet. And I wanted to be the kind of person who never needed rules like these. I stood under the ice letters like she said. The door gasket breathed cold across my knuckles. The compressor kicked, a metallic kick, and then the long rattle of a defrost cycle in the back room. The sliding glass doors reflected me a half-beat late. Being tired makes reflections weird. You tell yourself. The intercom above the lottery display coughed in a low hiss. I took one step closer to the freezer, half because the cold felt good on the dry of my skin, and half because the card in my hand suggested I should. The PA popped. A female voice, friendly synthetic. Sam. My name turned into a dime and dropped through me. Rule number 2 drilled up through the soles of my shoes. I did not answer. I did not move. I let the cold off the freezer door climb my forearms like a rash. Sam? It said again, a tiny bit brighter, breasts of the brand voice. And then any other store's script. Thank you for choosing Sunvale, but it didn't finish. The speaker whistled, as if someone had a finger gently pressed to it. I set my palms to the freezer door. Like it could take fingerprints like a human. 5 seconds, 10. My breath fogged the glass, and in my breath I watched letters form backward, the way finger grease writes on a windshield. MAS. Then the fog cleared. The letters faded. I took that as the end of a test. Lori raised her mug at me and didn't smile. Good. I shouldn't have looked inside the freezer. I told myself I was checking inventory. That's my job. That's what I'm here for. Bags of ice stacked in blue-printed 20-pound bricks. Beefy white frost on the floor plate. The light inside turned everything sterile. On the inner side of the glass, 5 pale ovals bloomed, each the size and angle of a fingertip, exactly where someone my height would lay a hand on a shoulder. They pressed outward from the inside and then faded, as if the cold ate them. I moved my own hand to see if it lined up. It did. Continuity log, 12:12 a.m. Clock in strip. Whiteacre S. Sunvale Fuel Grid 8, 1 forecourt OK, 2 counter, 3 coffee, 4 diner bar, 5 kitchen pass, 6 backlot, 7 motel, Legacy, 8 canopy, Legacy, PA. Sam, 12:11 a.m. Held under ice 40 seconds. I started the coffee and replaced the medium lids. I wrote my initials on the restroom checklist at midnight sharp, because the printed sheet says to. The sliding doors reflected me half a breath after I walked away. I now know half a breath here is the difference between your skin and whatever else wants it. I went to count the pumps, and the sky sounded like a far-off train made of insects. When the PA remembers your name, you do not remember. You have a mouth. The restroom checklist says 12:30 a.m. A corporate sheet nobody who writes rules for pay has to die against. I took the spray bottle and the blue roll of towels and stepped to the sliding doors at 12:28. The neon along the canopy went steady pink for a second, like a smile you can't trust, then chattered. The big price pylon clicked once as the wind tugged the fence line flags below it. Out in the diesel lanes, one pump blinked its card reader light, despite no truck on the pad. The interstate sent a long sigh over the desert floor. I knew rule number 1. I also knew the laminated checklist is how Lori decides who keeps their job. That's the push, the sheet saying 12:30 a.m., and the rules saying don't. The air outside works into the cracks of your mouth and sits there like a dare. The sodium lamps smear a tired amber over the concrete. And the pump faces. I watched the minute hand tick. I tried to time the walk to the men's room so I'd be back inside when the 3 on the clock was a hair from changing. We all bargain in stupid, quiet ways. Somewhere behind the diner wall, the ice machine sloughed a load into its bin and made a rattle like bone china. The rope of little flag triangles out by the billboard yard snapped and hummed. A cicada guessed at itself in a scrubby bush. By the motel ice machine exhaust, the sliding doors showed me stepping out and then catching up. It wouldn't matter if I pretended not to see. I stepped out into the amber, and my body told me truth. I should not be under this canopy at 12:30 a.m. I kept going anyway because the checklist was paper that can be held up in court, and the rule was plastic that only protects you if you let it. At 12:30 flat, the canopy went dark. Not a flicker, not a roll down, just off, as if someone snatched the plug from the wall of the sky. Black high-beam silence fell. My knees thought about running, my feet decided not to. The air changed. It had weight, a low carry, like you stand in the wake of a truck you can't see. The desert floor whispered, not wind, the dry kind of speaking. The pump to my left, which I had not enabled with any key, made a soft click, like it does when a tank first fills and the air chokes. Numbers rolled where no nozzle was lifted. 0.03 gallons, 0.06 gallons. The cheap LCD stuttered and kept going. Between my boots, the dust the canopy roof keeps from falling made a small circle. Sand moved counterclockwise, a tight eddy. It picked up to golf ball size, ankles high, then loosened, then collapsed. The hair on my arms raised a slow half-inch, like someone drawing a dull comb across. The pump's click kept metronome time, the little silver check valve inside doing its job. Only there was no job to do. The pump tallied 2.3 gallons. The canopy lights flashed back alive. Sodium amber Dopplering everything the way that light does when it's starving for voltage. The sand circle flattened. The pump stopped counting. The receipt printer in my pocket spat an inch of thermal. With no one's card on it. Continuity log, 12:30 to 12:31. Forecourt blackout, 40 seconds. Pump 6 advance, 2.3 gallons. No customer present? Restroom check, skipped at 12:30 a.m. Completed 12:34. Notation, concentric dust ring, 9-inch diameter. Present 12 seconds. Collapsed when lamps relit. I turned, and the sliding glass doors took just long enough to reflect me, that I could pretend it was fine. Inside, the cold fan over the ice case exhaled a long winter breath across my wrist. I wrote 12:34 on the hospitable little employee restroom checklist, which is a lie. The way rules are truths that don't need signatures. Lori initialed beside mine and said nothing. The pumps remember, the forecourt breathes, the canopy stops time at 12:30 a.m. to make a little room for something not me. Jax, the kid runner. watched me from the coffee island with a grin that was all cartilage and caffeine. You get the blackout? He held his phone up. The lock screen showed 12:29 frozen. I'm gonna catch it on the pylon. That was when I should have told him no. Instead, I told him to be back by 1:15 a.m. I am trying to forgive myself for that. Jax is 19 and shaped like you make plans that don't include a future you believe in. He wore a hoodie. Despite the drying night, he tasted like the gum you chew to convince a cop you're not high. He stepped out the doors at 12:26. Catch you on the flip. That's a sentence that only ever means I already chose wrong and I'd like it to work out anyway. Thanks. He climbed the service ladder, bolted to the price pylon. The kind with a steel cage that makes you feel more safe and is exactly as safe as whatever's watching you wants it to be. He climbed with his phone in his back pocket and the sticky of his rubber soles squeaking a little. The pylon's faceplates for reg and diesel clicked once as the wind looked them over. The CB radio behind the counter at Sunvale Diner squawked. Gus, the line cook, keeps it on channel 19. Because he likes the traffic. Human sound makes the kitchen feel like a place where you make food instead of prayers. Somewhere in that static, a voice said, Exit 178, don't do 30 minutes. Don't do 30 seconds of 30. A chuckle after, like they meant it as a joke you don't get. The canopy lamps buzzed, the way a bad filling buzzes when you bite foil. The neon pink along the C-store's roofline hiccuped. My fingers were dry paper. I held the doorframe and tried not to count time, because counting is an admission you think there's a number you can reach that sets you free. The sliding glass looked at me a heartbeat after me. I could smell diesel even without a truck to carry it. Jax reached the first service platform and tucked himself in with the signs steel to his back and his phone up. He smiled down at me, and I returned nothing. The 3 on the red G price column hanged at exactly halfway between flips. 3 is a hook number. It always has been. I thought about telling him that and didn't, because he would come down anyway, or he wouldn't. Men are coins that drop through their own pockets. 12:30 a.m. The canopy lamps died. The pitch under the pylon deepened, as if the steel wanted to tell you how tall you are. Jax's phone lit his face like a kind of communion. He lifted it and turned it so the lens caught the chrome perimeter on pump 4. You do not want chrome in a place where reflections get hungry. The sliding doors reflected him half a beat late as he waved the phone. He looked down to make sure I was looking at him. He was already in the reflection before he moved. Time had slipped its leash by half a breath, and he didn't see it, he mouthed. See? Nothing. In the glass, he mouthed it again. A polite echo that did not belong to him. The hair on my arms told me no. The way the body remembers a hand before it learns a word. I looked down at the concrete. Small thing, Jax's shadow wasn't there. My chest said nothing at all. I looked up and the 3 on the pylon's regular price rotated to the next face in slow labor, then stopped with a clack. Not the right number. The canopy lamps flickered once, then returned. Jax laughed once, too sharp, and tucked his phone away, which is when you take one hand off a ladder, because you believe ladders have your back. He came down to the pad, and the sliding doors showed him coming through, after he'd already passed the first mat. See, the PA said, thank you. In that brand tone that bothers you more, the more you learn how to live with it. Continuity log, 12:31 pylon, reg, 3, hung half flip, completed wrong price. Then corrected 12:33. Jax, no shadow visible during canopy blackout. Reflection lag noted in sliding door. Phone capture, video loops 12:29 to 12:31 when exported. You're not going up there again. He smirked. Relax. I'm going to get the diner on film at midnight. when the jukebox does the thing. Gus thumped the order rail in the kitchen 3 times, like he always does before hot oil, and Jax flinched, as if the sound had weight. I returned to the counter, which is a kind of cowardice that reads like doing your job. The canopy hummed back into place, like it always does. The pumps acted as if they never counted without a card. The CB radio threw laughter, like empty cans. Jax's shoes didn't squeak quite as loud once he was back on the rug. Some part of him didn't come with. Gus runs the diner like a man runs a truck on bald tires. He knows every wobble. The bar makes a J under the clock, and the jukebox sits on the right wall with a blue light that makes you remember gas station bathrooms from childhood. Midnight here feels like noon in a place God visits. That's the push, the hour, the machine, the rule. We came in at 11:57 to wipe the laminate menus and reset napkin holders. Jax leaned on a stool and kept his phone camera aimed at the chrome ring around the flat top. Gus tapped the order rail 3 deliberate times before he dropped the first basket into 350 degrees oil. The AM TV muttered grainy weathermen and a crawl about counties I don't live in. The little bell you hit for orders dinged when no hand touched it. The jukebox hummed the default playlist, some song that might as well be a carpet. The ambient air in a diner is a punch bowl of matted smells. Old coffee saturated the ruined sugar of syrup, grease, the chemical lemon of whatever they use on the bathrooms, the blue ozone of the flylight. My mouth had the metal zing I always get when a ballast is dying nearby. The bar lights flickered. Lori stood with one foot in the kitchen and one out, like a person who never chooses, because choosing becomes choosing again. You don't look at mirrors when the box does it. She didn't look at me when she said it. 12:00 hit. The jukebox changed tracks by itself. That's allowable at midnight. The rule anchors at that tick. You still leave. I pulled Jax by his hoodie sleeve. The TV spat static like a snowstorm coming out of the elastic band of the world, and then returned to the crawl. A guy who hadn't been in the diner 5 seconds ago sat in the corner booth. Truckers. Jacket, ball cap, hands around a mug. Only he never asked for a mug. He lifted it a beat late. He smiled a small civil smile that didn't belong to any human's muscle memory. Gus went pale in a way that turns tan people sallow. Out. Let me get the chrome. No chrome. Rule number 4. Lori said, softer than I expected. We backed out. You learned to back. Forward is for grocery stores and Saturdays. At the pass window between kitchen and bar, something reached. It didn't look like arms because it didn't need to. We recognize reach even when bodies lie. Gus was last. He paused 2 beats to get a customer who was dancing with a seizure of indecision. 2 beats is too generous. The pass went long as a mouth and then sideways, like someone pulled the room and the air with a flat strap. It caught Gus by the apron hem and the apron came off because the tie is supposed to give. He was a kitchen lifer and even his apron built for this. The pass caught his cross necklace a moment later, a brass heat that bit his collarbone, and he ripped the chain as if it belonged to the apron and tossed it at me before the window pulled and wasn't a window. He didn't scream. He sounded like a man who jumped down a grade he had to take anyway. Continuity log. 12:00 a.m. jukebox. Track change on schedule. Evacuation per rule number 4. Booth. Occupant present without entry. Smile lag synchronized after 2.3 seconds. Pass window, lateral displacement. Gus Morales lost from station, cross recovered, hot to touch. We stood in the C-store under the ice and breathed like bodies that had learned about breath's cost. Jax shook. He went sideways. Lori nodded once. The slow kind that means grief and ledger can live in the same head. The PA said nothing. The CB laughed somewhere 2 towns away. There are ways a place eats you that keep your name. There are ways it keeps you under a color of light, and this color is natrium, and that means it never needed blue to taste you. I put Gus's cross in my pocket. It held heat like a stove piece. My palm branded an X to mark a debt I didn't deserve. Outside, the canopy hummed back to a consistent pitch. Inside, the coffee burned to sweetness again. The stove hissed to itself with nobody to use it. That's not the creepiest part. The creepiest part is that somebody will. At 1:00 a.m., the paper starts deciding if you're a person or an error code. That's the push. Night audit here means Z reports, a cash drop, the safe that takes your fingers and counts them. Lori slid the Z tape toward me and turned away like she didn't want to witness. The rule number 5 part, audit binds us to the PA. The way prayers bind people to gods. I punched the key sequence the way she showed me. FUNC plus Z plus ENTER. The thermal printer screeched a ribbon of numbers down the dirty counter. I unlocked the drop compartment with the short key that looks like a toy and counted out bills at the speed you use when the number of bills is also the number of breaths you want to keep. The wall clock rolled a minute down the way a man rolls his shoulder. The sliding door reflection lagged like a drunk you don't want to wake. The safe floor blew cold up my sleeves. The coffee island gurgled the last of a brew. The pot smelled like gourds that died brave. My right thumb clicked my pen's plunger without asking me. I tried to make the sound small, and it wasn't. The PA sighed in a warm exhale. I felt on the backs of my ears. The ice case compressor kicked and then cut out, like maybe it had remembered something. The audit ledger is a white binder with blue lines. And somebody's attempt at structure, fighting a system that moves when it wants to. I opened tonight, 1:00, and saw my signature already waiting where I meant to put it. S. Whitaker. The W a tiny bit lower than the S, because my left wrist angles when I'm nervous. The pen stroke had that faint pressure ridge from somebody who doesn't lift as clean as they want to. It looked like my hand after 5 cups of diner coffee. The date was right. The time noted 1:04 in Lori's block caps. The ink dried like it had been there an hour. Rule number 5 says do not overwrite. Your brain flies like a fly into sugar when it sees your name wrong. Wants to scratch it, wants to fix. I shut the binder. I locked the drop, even though my stomach wanted to inventory it twice to make math protect me. The PA said, "We appreciate you." A little too close to my ear, I did not answer. I stood where the ice handprints had formed and let the Freon cold find the patch. Gus's cross had burned on my chest and tried to call me back to room temperature. The receipt printer bled 12 more inches while I looked away, Z-tape naming me 2 more times, and spooling into the trash like somebody dumping coils of pale gut. The header printed Whitaker, Z01, 104 3 times between totals. Paper does what it's told. Paper can be told by voices you don't invite. A corner of the Z-tape's underside came up while it was still printing. The thermal coating flipped negative, numbers printing white against a field that burned to black. The machine chattered like a squirrel and then calmed. Output said void, then okay. The clock above the counter blinked and reset to 1:01, then caught up to 1:06 in little convulsions. I left the Z where it fell. I initialed the daily restroom checklist. I did not touch the ledger again. The PA breathed as if something had leaned closer, and then remembered not to. Continuity log, 1:04 to 1:10 a.m. Audit, Z report printed. Ledger shows S. Whitaker pre-filled at 1:04. Safe drop sealed drawer counted twice. Thermal tape anomaly. Negative print segment approximately 5 inches. Clock drifted then corrected. Jax poked his head around the corner from the motel hallway, with his mouth ready to say something clever, and found it empty. Keyboard says out for service on number 17. Doors cracked. You want me to? No. Rule number 3. You don't go in number 17. He grinned like lying hadn't failed him yet. I'm not going in, I just want to look. You'd think the same word would cover both behaviors. It doesn't. People draw lines to keep themselves safe, and then lay a foot over like a child testing a step. Lori didn't look up from the cams. The legacy squares stayed black like the backs of eyes. The camera for Motel Hall hissed and then returned with a sharpened picture, the way an old TV wakes up. If you're near 17 at 2:30 a.m., I won't come get you. She meant it because she is kind. We say things like that when we are kind. The motel hallway is the dry throat of the place. The carpets the color of cigarettes that never got their last inch. The wall lamps wear jaundiced shades. The ice machine at the far end breathes like a creature freshly asleep. That's the push. The number 17 door sits an inch open, with the out for service tag twisted to a right angle. We stepped off the C-store tile onto the motel's soft murder of a rug. My shoes stuck and released in a rhythm that sounded like a person whispering, "Wait." The exit light over the stairwell trembled in its casing. The laundry room off to the left banged its coin-op drum in a way that says pennies have put themselves where they don't belong. Bleach clawed the hair in my nose. Jax exhaled like he planned to turn his breath into a joke for later. Number 17 glowed around the jam. The light inside didn't behave like a standard bulb. It looked like water does when you're a kid under the surface, and the sun is eating clouds and digesting them. The peephole wore a pale ring of condensation. Moisture on glass in a desert is a story in a language I do not read. My right shoulder itched exactly where I'd seen the ice hand press the glass. The keyboard back at the counter had the number 17 key on its hook. With the tag turned 90 degrees, paper card aged to the color of smokes. "Don't," I said, because I had to. Jax put his ear to the gap anyway. Rule number 3 says never go in. It doesn't say anything about looking. That's how we make room for our weakness. That's how rules get you anyway. Jax leaned until his nose almost touched the air that belonged to that room. He held his phone at a stupid angle, not taking video, not calling anyone. Just holding a consumer miracle as if it could recast a mistake into content and therefore deny it death. Hear something? Air. I said, and the machine down the hall and your blood. He set a finger to the threshold, like a kid daring heat on a stove. He didn't cross, he touched the seam. It's different. That's the lie our mouths make for our hands. The moment his fingertip touched the line. The light inside. Number 17 pulled backwards like air going over a wing. For 3 seconds, Jax cast no shadow on the carpet. My stomach made a noise I hope I never make with other parts of me. He snapped his hand back and swallowed the curse that had his name on it. On the keyboard back at the desk, I heard the little metal tag of number 17 rotate on its hook like a weather vane and stop 90 degrees off true. The peephole made a gentle huff from inside, fobbed, then cleared. The carpet where his toe sat sank like old foam, learning a new weight, and then unlearned it. "Okay," he said, breathless, laugh broken. "Okay." Continuity log, 1:27 to 1:29 a.m. Number 17, door ajar, interior light refracts, peephole fogs from inside. Jax, fingertip contact with threshold, shadow absence 3 seconds. Key tag. Number 17 rotated 90 degrees. Laundry coin-op knocks, bleach odor strong, back to the kitchen. I said we take the long way and we don't look in the chrome. He complied, which surprised me and did not console. He was already planning his canopy stunt at 1:30, because boys believe in forgiveness that doesn't exist. We cut through the diner's back door into the kitchen. The flat top hissed unattended. Gus's cross in my pocket warmed at the touch of my palm like a cigarette ember. You believe you didn't drop. The jukebox wasn't playing, it hummed in the key of weight. We reached the sliding doors at 128. The wind across the billboard yard hauled the flag ropes taut enough to play a note of plastic. The canopy hummed a little higher, and the hairs on my wrist laid down as if listening. Don't do it. Jax took 2 steps into the amber and turned his face up at the lamps like a plant. Just going to stand in the breeze, he said. Rule number 1 says not at 12:30 a.m. Jax's phone was in his hoodie pocket. His shadow lay on the rug in the store. The forecourt's concrete waited, obedient and unfeeling, to press its memory into him or forget him based on a clock. He chose which he wanted to be. I'm writing this part with my hands flat on the counter, so I don't put my fingers through the case where the lottery display hums. I can't tell the difference between fear and the beginning of anger. Both cram the throat. Both make the room smaller. I am grateful for rules because rules give me something to hold when people will not, and the canopy lights will go out at 12:30 a.m., whether I love Jax or not. I warned him. Lori warned him louder. It didn't matter. At 128, Jax is already out there with his hoodie up, standing under the sodium like it's a tanning bed. He's aiming his phone at nothing as if nothing isn't the most expensive subject we got. I plant my palm on the cold aluminum stile of the sliding door and stay inside the threshold. The glass breathes a skin of condensation out of habit. The price pylon clicks once. Like a faulty turn signal, slush. The flag string at the billboard pad goes voot, voot, voot in a fresh, mean wind. Lori's voice, don't step. 5 keys jingle once on her hip. The ice case behind me sighs a Freon hymn. My tongue is salt and dust. I can feel the cut at the corner of my mouth reopen when I swallow. The canopy lamps do that bug zapper simmer. The buzzer above pump 3 chirps for no one. The pumps are good soldiers. Their solenoids hum even when nobody gives them permission. The CB on the diner pass shelf burps static, and then a ghost of Gus's gravel. Don't let anybody hang around the diner if the box plays wrong. He's been quiet since midnight. He also walked back in through the walk-in cooler 5 minutes ago like nothing and everything had happened. No apron, eyes wider than any clock we own. He said he had to check the oil temps. He washed his hands longer than surgeons. Pivot, 1:30 a.m. The canopy lights die so completely that the night inhales and holds its breath. The hum yanks out of my ears. The sound left behind isn't silence, it's a pressure. The air gains a face you can't see. The flag line tightens and sings a knife on bone. My breath stays in me. The concrete under the pumps arches 1 molecular layer closer to the stars. Jax's hoodie lifts on one shoulder, like something's nosing under it to fit better. The bodies of the pumps flex. You can't see metal breathe unless you live with it. The front faceplate on pump 6 bulges a 1/4 inch and relaxes like an old man's chest rounding for a nap. The check valve inside clicks, tick, tick, uncommissioned. My teeth hurt in their root ends, like when you bite foil. The dust at Jax's feet eddies, small. 9 inches across, tight rotation, then it goes tall. A tube of grit that finds his shins and forgets him, and then remembers him all the way to his pocket. He laughs, 1 bark he meant to keep, and tries to back up without looking like that is what he is doing. The dust gets around his ankles and climbs. The circle widens and then tightens and then opens like a hand closing. I can see, this part is the part I cannot tell a reasonable man. The pattern inside the dust, 5 little ovals in a crescent, like fingerprints pressed in flour. They rotate and set and raise, rotate and set and raise, like the dust is a palm deciding where to settle. The PA in the ceiling hisses, not the voice, the breath, like it wants the microphone and not me. I don't say his name. I don't open the door. I meet Lori's eyes, and everything she's hiding sits there like a loaded cart someone parked wrong. She mouths hold. I hold. The dust lifts at once, embraces Jax's calves, and then shrugs him the way a dog shrugs water, only down. I see his knees go soft as if he's laughing at a joke too hard to stand for. I see his shoes leave his body story. The lights pop back. Sodium floods his absence with that old urine gold. On the pad, his hoodie peeled up backwards like a shed skin, his phone a foot away, face down. Running 15 seconds of his own ankles looping. The pump face freezes at 1.50 gallons sold to nobody. The slide beep inside the door tries to force cheer. Lori puts a hand flat on the door and breathes one good moral breath. Nobody crosses at 30. She says it doesn't carry judgment, it's a weather report. Continuity log, 1:30 to 1:34 a.m. Forecourt blackout, 60 seconds, longer than prior. Pump 6, 1.50 gallons increment, no authorization. Dust column observed. Micro swirl 9-inch diameter to 2-foot height. Granular pattern resembling 5 oval repeats. Subject J. Kirby missing. Last device video loop 15 seconds. Ankle level. I retrieve the hoodie like it has a charge. I switch the nozzle boot on. Pump 6 to off and back to on. Because that's what you do when you want to make the world behave by toggles. I cradle Jax's phone in both hands as if it were a living thing. The screen shows my feet after I have already moved away. Shh. Back inside. The cold from the ice case slaps the burn on my collarbone where Gus's cross kissed me earlier. The burn stings like a mouth rinsing a wound. I can smell ozone from somewhere that doesn't belong to plugged-in things. Gus stands against the diner door with his knuckles white, his cross gone, lips moving. He taps the rail, 1, 2, 3. He doesn't say the other numbers out loud. He looks at me, and he is a man the night has tasted and not finished. Next time the box plays wrong. We don't let them sit it out. We run. The CB coughs on 19. I swear to anything you want that it uses Jax's voice to say, "Did you get that?" The flag line goes slack. The canopy hums like an appliance that dreams it is brand new. The hoodie in my hands holds heat it can't justify. The part of me that keeps score writes it down. 30 owes one body. I am beginning to be the kind of man who knows what debt the minutes keep. Jax's shadow is the only shadow that still shows up when the sliding doors finally decide to reflect me. I stood under the ice letters because that was still the only thing I knew how to do. You can survive a thing and still be wrong about what saved you. The freezer door had sweat beading at the frame. Despite air so dry it polished the bones in your ears. The decal had a crack through the E like a fault line you try not to build on. That's the push, the habit of rule number 2 after the fresh hole Jax left. The PA popped. Not the brand voice. Her voice, my sister's, the way she sounds on a workday call, when she's on hold and pretending she doesn't mind. Sam? It collared my throat and led me forward into a place between obedience and reflex. I had no business giving my first yeah to anything with a wire in it. I did yeah? It was small. I make a lot of small mistakes that become whole men. The cold from the seam of the freezer moved like hands around the meat of my shoulder. The compressor in back did its kick, long rattle, settle rhythm. Lori was counting laundry tokens into a dish we use for pennies. She wasn't watching me. She never watches when she knows you must choose on your own. For the choice to stick, I put both palms to the glass. The fat of my thumbs smudged a half moon on the inside of my own fog. Don't talk back. I told myself, the rule's the fence. The PA exhaled. As if someone with a smile took a step closer to a microphone that was a foot too sensitive. Thank you. It said, in my sister's exact lilt. The lilt she uses when she sets down a heavy bag and pretends it weighs nothing. Inside the freezer, the other me was there again. Faint, and turned away, like a customer at a counter you don't want to deal with yet. The angle of his shoulders was mine at 17, when I used to steal my own time out of the day. He didn't fog the glass. He didn't exist the way I do. The 5 pale ovals bloomed on the inside of the glass again, right where that angle would set a hand on my shoulder. Then pressed. The temperature under my palm dropped hard enough to make bone ring. I could taste Freon at the back of my throat, a clean metal cough. The E and ice cracked louder, the vinyl losing the last of its glue in one peel that sounded like scotch tape off paper. The letter slumped to a single bottom edge, and then fell, landing on the floor mat with the dignity of a drunk. Pain assembled from cold, it's a particular kind, deep and moral, and slid its whole hand through my trapezius, where the frost hands lined up. The world narrowed and widened, as if a heartbeat forgot to stay within me. I stepped back a half pace, and knocked my hip on the lottery glass. The displays showed 999 like a joke about promises. The glass of the freezer fogged in reverse, not with my breath, with cold writing from the inside out. It wrote Sam backward this time. Then the S smeared into an E and then away, like someone's mouth with the wrong teeth trying to say my name. Sam? My sister's voice in the PA said again, so clean my ribs move like they always have since she lost good lungs. I clenched my jaw. No. The word hurt to swallow. I didn't give it the extra syllable that makes you a friend. The freezer light strobed once, the internal coil temp on the little stick-on thermometer. Lori keeps for health inspections spiked from 18 degrees Fahrenheit down to -5 and back to 20 in 2 inches of mercury the gauge did not own. The handprint on my shoulder stayed, a blossom of frostburn that burned like truth after you used up your lies. Continuity log, 2:14 to 2:18 a.m., unauthorized voice mesh. Rule number 2 violated, verbal, yeah? Immediate effect, localized temp drop. Coil thermometer spiked to -5, frost burn to right shoulder, 5 oval pattern. Ice decal, E delaminated. Cabinet now reads IC. Mirror phenomenon, internal silhouette turned away. I backed up until my spine met the coffee urn. The heat off the metal didn't help. It made the cold worse, the way a fever breaks wrong and the chill takes it as an invitation. Lori slid a sleeve up and looked at the handprint as if reading my shoulder were a recipe. She didn't touch me. She doesn't touch when the thing that touched you wants another turn. You said, yeah? Not accusation, inventory, yeah. It sounded like a poor imitation of a person who learned from mistakes. Once. Don't. Not again. She pointed at the IC. It'll do less now. It'll do what it can with what you give it. That's how these bargains work. Gus stood in the diner doorway with wet hands. He had grease on his wrists, the thin black tide line cooks get when the soap gives up. He saw the burn and flinched like a man who heard a shot. If the box plays wrong, we go. We don't argue. The jukebox hummed the default carpet. The AM TV at the corner of my eye stuttered a person-shaped block in the weather feed, like a storm got legs. I put Gus's cross on the counter, not quite touching the IC door. It turned the cold into something useful, a line between 2 points a man might not cross. The PA did not use my name again for the next minute. The freezer's seal breathed like a sleeping animal you trust less after one soft bite. When the letters that guard a chapel fall, you stop going there expecting communion. You go there expecting an offering will be taken. It happened at 2:40 a.m., which is a time that has never promised anybody anything. It's not a round hour, it has no ceremony. That's why the jukebox chose it. That's the push. I was restocking lids I didn't need when the box in the diner coughed a change. No customer, no token, no dusty circuit of pop country. The track rolled over into something I couldn't tell you the name of. Because names belong to human arrangements. And this sounded like someone held a mouth against glass and learned to hum. Gus looked up from the flat top, eyes white-ringed, the kind of look people get when an animal they love lifts its head in a way that isn't a stretch. He smacked the order rail 1, 2, 3 and didn't wait for me to notice. Out. All the way out. Chrome is nobody's friend. A trucker at the corner booth sat still, hands around a mug that wasn't steaming. He looked at the TV, then at the jukebox, then at his reflection in the chrome window rim, and didn't recognize the man in any of them. The AM TV blew a snow so thick it felt like the walls got cataracts. The order bell dinged for hands that were already full, and then dinged again as if it had a speech impediment. The air took a fat edge of burned oil and pushed it up my nose like a memory of summer you didn't like. My shoulder burned cold under my shirt. Where the freezer handprint had set, the mats under my boots squelched, although nobody had cleaned them. The pass window shone flat and dark like a puddle at night. The chrome around it encouraged you to check your mouth for food. Rule number 4 says you leave when the box changes at wrong times. I took the trucker by his sleeve. He flinched, 1 beat late. Up. Up now. He stood in the way a man stands when told his dog got out and the gate still open. Gus came around the bar in 2 long steps and put his shoulder into the door. Lori was already holding the sliding glass with her foot, the chime doing its polite retail cough. We backed out, careful with chrome. The pass window watched our faces over our shoulders. You can feel this even when a thing doesn't have eyes. Gus was last by a single habit beat, the one where he checks the pilot on the grill, to make sure the place doesn't burn down behind us and make our leaving useless. The pass window widened sideways, not an optical trick. The seams of the drywall stretched to accommodate a mouth the room had not previously needed. The stainless surface folded like silk pulled from a basket. It caught the hem of Gus's apron, and the apron popped its knot. Did what aprons are made to do, sacrifice. The window took that hit and wanted more. It got the chain of his cross instead, because he turned to push the trucker with both hands. Generous, stupid, holy, and a man's neck tilts just right when he puts someone else in front. It tightened on the chain, and his hand went there, because of course it did. He tore the pendant free and threw it at me on reflex. The cross burned my palm like a skillet. Gus's body slid sideways through the width of the pass, shoulders compressing in a way you never want to see shoulder blades move. He didn't yell. He made the sound of a man who commits. The window snapped back to standard issue with a slap of sheet metal. The jukebox went quiet. The TV found a weatherman apologizing. The trucker held his mug out like someone might fill it. Continuity log, 2:41 to 2:44 a.m. Jukebox, unscheduled track change, evacuation initiated per rule number 4. Pass window, lateral displacement 18 inches, subject G. Morales removed from station, pendant recovered. Surface temp, 137 degrees Fahrenheit on contact. AMTV, snow to normal, no remote actuation. Diner chrome, reflection lag 0.6 seconds during event. Normalized afterward. Lori locked the diner door with a turn that sounded like a wrist cracking. He knew that rule better than you. There's no blame in it. It is a fact recorded for audit. The PA sighed in the ceiling and said, softer than Bran voice, "Thank you, Gus." The freezer IC hiccuped its compressor and blew white vapor under the door that traced 5 oval prints by my toes like a child's game. The trucker blinked slow. He went through he couldn't make pass window into a verb. I couldn't either, but it verbed him anyway. I pressed the cross to the counter near the icy door. The heat shivered the frost, drew a wet outline of a symbol I don't believe in, and believe in, like a man holds a ladder he knows isn't anchored. My shoulder burned cold and hot, both like baptism and fever. The CB on 19 gave a sound that could have been somebody clearing their throat or a truck changing lanes. Lori slid the closed placard across the diner's inner window and faced the C-store as if the customers we don't have will form a tidy line and agree to rules. We're going to finish audit. Then we're going to finish not dying. You do not sign over what's signed. You do not let number 17 make you polite. I nodded like confidence could be borrowed for an hour and paid back with overtime. The sliding doors threw my reflection at me with the lag just under what I can call accident. I mouthed okay. The glass mouthed okay back a breath late. And smiled as if it enjoyed the rehearsal. Gus's 3 knuckle taps still rang in the metal. I don't know how long that sound will live in things. The jukebox didn't play a wrong song again that night. It didn't need to. It had made its point. At 3 a.m., the paper wanted its second try. The ZU run at 1 a.m. is the store telling itself a bedtime story. The audit at 3 a.m. is the store waking up to see if it lied. That's the push. Lori slid the binder to me and stood behind the cams. The 2 legacy squares hummed their black, one for the motel, one for the canopy. The ceiling fan over the lottery machines thumped the same blade on the same low spot each rotation. The ice case coughed a small glitter of frost, and then acted like it hadn't. I keyed the sequence. The thermal print head chattered a charge up my fingers. The tape threaded clean, and then printed backward, not mirrored, but negative again. The black field eating the white digits as they grew. I could smell the coating cooking wrong, a sweet bitter breath like burned marshmallow and cash register ink. The safe drop clicked and locked itself with no hand on the lever. The drawer closed as if guided by someone more polite than me. I opened the ledger to 300, and the lines weren't in time order. Top entry, 307. Under that, 302. Under that, 311. Rule number 5 rang bright and useful. Do not overwrite, do not correct, leave what's already there. My left hand twitched for the pen anyway, because you can't stand to see untidy numbers when you owe people. I put my hand in my pocket and let the cross burn the arc into my palm again, so I wouldn't use it to ruin the fence. 2 signatures in my hand showed under the 302 line. One was crisp, the me I am now. Tidy, recent. The other sat faint, older, as if the page had slept on it a while. The graphite shine of pressure appeared where ink should be. The S started low and grew tall. The W dragged like my wrist does after hours. Both were mine. Both were there before I arrived at 300. The clock above the cams rolled from 305 to 302 to 306, and then stuck at 306 with a little buzz. On the cam grid, Legacy 7, Motel flashed, a white blip like someone got happy with a flashlight. The hall image that replaced the black for less than a beat showed. Number 17, not closed. The door wide like a mouth that believes in swallowing. In the dark behind it, someone was doing numbers. 0029, 0030, with their fingers, not their lips. The receipt tape kept rolling. The polarity flipped mid-print. The digits bled into nonsense and then recovered in a new order. Descending by timestamp, 311 printed before 302, as if the machine had learned to rake future toward itself. The safe thunked. The internal bolt shot with no key. The drawer counted itself down to 0.00. The audit line marked Night Auditor. Designated, filled in, S. Whitaker. In a hand I know from writing my name on court forms and visitor wristbands. I didn't make that motion. The pen ticked in the cup by itself, as if it had tapped a man on the shoulder who wasn't ready. The PA used no voice. It used a breath that felt like a warm hand on hair that doesn't belong to it. Don't sign, Lori said it, not looking at me. It already did. Continuity log, 302 to 308 a.m. Thermal head polarity flip, 4.8-inch negative print segment, odor present. Ledger out of order. Dual signatures under 302, both in my hand. Designation line auto-filled name, legacy cabin flash. Number 17 visible open. Shadowed figure counting with fingers safe auto lock. Drawer closes without input. I let my hands hang. I felt stupid and relieved. The way you feel when an older sibling talks to the cop for you. I hate that feeling. I want to be my own witness. The sliding glass threw me my lag. It added a smile I didn't put on. I looked away. The AM TV on the diner wall across the atrium showed a weather map with a hole in it exactly where our highway runs. Lori closed the binder. "We're almost done," she said. "We've got 3:30 left." She meant the slot that eats humans, the way drains get clogs, and you learn the smell before you see the hair. "Who stands in it?" I asked. The cross smoked the sweat off my palm. I put it down on the counter because my hand had had enough. She met my eyes in the ice door's slip reflection. Her face lagged a beat behind her real one. "I do," she said. "Or you do. There's no third thing." The PA crackled and said in the bright brand voice again, "Thank you for choosing." It didn't say what. The clock hiccuped to 3:29, then to 3:27, then to 3:30, and stopped a second before coming back. The pumps outside hummed tighter. We were going to make an offering either way. The ledger had written it down. I hate that paper can do that to you and still be called paper. The freezer coughed one more white breath. The letters over it read, "I see now. That is not a word." It's the beginning of one. It's not a hero thing, it's a slot. The way Lori explained it, you could file it like inventory. One presence at 3:30 a.m. to keep the sweep from wandering. It likes a place to land. If it doesn't get a place, it goes looking. It finds the soft parts of maps. That's the push. 3:30 coming like a hand. You can hear through concrete. We stood at the threshold again. The canopy hummed at a higher pitch, the ballast singing its worst hymn. The flag line stuttered like a man with something he does not want to say. The pumps clicked their little gate valves in test. The CB told 2 truckers headed east to watch for elk and didn't mention us. I had the burn on my shoulder, the ache in my jaw from clenching, Jax's hoodie folded by the lottery display, Gus's cross sweating on the counter like a small animal. Lori stepped to the edge of the mat, 1 foot inside, 1 out. She took a wide stance the way you do when you stack a heavy box. When you mean to be a thing, the world must push around rather than over. I'll anchor it. You hold the ice. Her face didn't ask if I agreed because we passed the part where questions come with multiple choice answers. She set her mug down by the receipt printer, and the printer ticked twice like it wanted to surprise us with cheer. "Trade with me." I heard my mouth say it. I didn't plan it. It left burning wick behind. "Take my audit and give me your slot." I didn't know if that was a thing a person could say and make true. She looked at me with the kind of pity we save for children and colonists. "It already took your audit," she said, simple. "It doesn't need your slot yet. It always wants more. It only gets what it's written for." 3:30 a.m., the number you can hear, hit. The canopy lights went out like a muscle cramp. The air changed from a property to a person. Lori's soles made a soft peel as the slab took them. Not a lot. Enough. She didn't struggle. She set her shoulders and looked at nothing. The way a woman looks at a man who thinks he is bigger than what made him. The PA said in something close to gratitude and not at all human, "Thank you, Lori." Her eyes didn't blink for 5 breaths. Silver gathered at the corners and stayed. Her cheeks went paler, which on her skin reads like someone emptied the light out. The ice case behind me coughed a burden of white that fell to the rug and clung like fog that decided to sit. The 5 ovals of a handprint pressed in my shoulder twinged like a tooth yanked and then reconsidered. I wanted to step into that mat line and pull the slab off her shoes the way you peel gum. I wanted to find a man's way to fix a drain with a wrench and a complaint. I turned sideways to go schlap, and the icy door opened itself a finger, just enough for the seal to whisper. The audit ledger flapped one page back like a breath-turned paper. The line Night Auditor, Desig pulsed blue ink wet, my name the only one there? Don't be clever. Every woman who survived a group of men has used that tone to prevent something that does not need doing. You don't trade if it isn't on the page. The slab released her at 3:31 a.m., the way the sea returns a thing it does not want. She stepped back, and her soles made a pop like a suction cup giving up real gentle. The PA exhaled. All business done. The flag line softened. The canopy lamps came back whiff by whiff, the way something returns to you that won't admit it left. Lori shook her ankle out as if it had fallen asleep. She looked at me, not the reflection in the IC, not the lag, the me, and said, "You're on paper, that matters." She picked up her mug and drank coffee. You couldn't pay a saint to drink. Her lips didn't get burned anymore. Some people get to keep privileges the hard way. I stood there with Jax's hoodie and Gus's cross and a fresh understanding. There is no courage here that isn't bookkeeping. You stand in a slot, you sign or you don't. The floor keeps the math and takes interest. Continuity log, 3:29 to 3:32 a.m. Slot anchor, L Pike at threshold. Adhesion at soles noted. Release at 31. PA acknowledgement. Thank you, Lori. Audit ledger. Designation pulsing, blue ink wet without pen contact. Icy door, self-open half an inch. White vapor present. I took my place under IC the way a man straps in. The freezer breathed the wool white onto my shins. The tape printer made a cheerful brrr and printed nothing anybody needs. The sliding doors reflected me half a beat behind and added a smile I hadn't earned. I told myself there had to be a path around the slots. Around number 17, around chrome and paper smiles. Lori says, fences, not explanations. I wanted a back road. There is always a back road, you just have to find the shoulder without rolling your pickup. Long route, Lori said, like she'd read my thought and given it a proper noun. If all three go at once. You face the pylon and you back through it all, and you do not look at what wants you to check. There is dignity in moving your body backward when it would be so easy to run. Backward is how you leave in this place, when forward belongs to other things. Everything lit at once in 3 different churches. That's the push. The icy case huffed, white shouldering out onto my shins. The jukebox in the diner leaned over to a track I've never heard, at a time when music is a kind of law. The number 17 door down the motel hall opened to the width a man can't get through unless he's invited, and the peephole fogged from inside. The PA took a breath that had my sister's voice inside it, like a coin in bread. The audit tape printer began to unspool without my finger anywhere near a key. Lori said, "Now." And I did not wait for now to finish the word. She faced the pylon with me, and we began to walk backward. That's the rule you're not supposed to need. Long route is for the nights that come for all of you, when you can't afford to make a series of smaller mistakes. You line your spine to the price sign and let your heels count distance. The forecourt smelled like cold diesel and plastic toy gun. The flag line sang in a higher key. The canopy lights flickered so fast it felt like water on a Sunday. The cam grid on the counter showed legacy squares that weren't black for a flash at a time. Canopy? Motel? Then we're again. The AMTV stuttered a weatherman's mouth into shapes that meant keep going. In a dialect of jaw, my shoulder ate the freezer burn and returned it as focus. Heels on tile, heels on mat, heels on concrete. The buzzer over pump 4 chirped for me without purchase. The pump check valve clicked, a polite tick, like someone making conversation out of habit. The pylon stood tall against a sky without stars, and with stars depending how you blink. The PA went human sharp. Sam. It said her, the sister I buried the last time I left a hospital with my eyes too dry. Sam, please. The auditor part of my heart took out a pen. The brother part took out a throat. I kept my feet moving back. No. I said it quietly, not to her, to what used her mouth. The tape printer chewed its length and spat, S. Whitaker, Night Auditor, 100 to 110, over and over and over, as if the Zed had learned to devour its own alphabet. The diner door caught the back of my heel. The chrome rim of the pass window shivered. Like a person holding laughter back at a funeral. I didn't look. That's the part in church where you drop the hymn book, and everybody pretends they didn't hear. The jukebox played a song about leaving without any words. The booth in the corner sat occupied without anyone in it, depending how your optic nerve filed the frames. We hit the motel threshold by counting the seams in the concrete, the way the pitch changes under soles. When you move from polished slab to cheap carpet, I smelled bleach and the wet of laundry that never dries. The number 17 door was open at the perfect width to agree with you. The light inside did that river glare thing that says go ahead and walk in if you want to drown on dry land. Face out. Lori said it. We faced the pylon like we knew it. The peephole at number 17 breathed and said my name in the brand voice that borrows your family and won't pay late fees. Sam, it said, and then my sister delivered a please that would have cut me in half at any other latitude. I did not give the yeah. The icy case behind us down a hall we couldn't see dropped ice in a load that echoed like a small car accident. The audit printer erased, then retyped my name on the same line. Then did it again, until the whole ledger strip was my name, forested in black on white on black. We stepped backward until our heels found tile, until our heels found mat, until the sliding doors pushed our calves and we let them. We didn't turn, we didn't check the chrome, we didn't enter. Number 17, we didn't answer her. The long route works not because it pulls you out, but because it reminds the place of its own geometry. You can't be in the diner, the forecourt, and motel at once. You choose a coastline, and it must return you to it. We chose the price pylon and the ice and audit drawer. And we did not move our eyes when the sliding glass caught up to reflect us and showed us smiling men a half-breath later. Continuity log, 4:02 to 4:12 a.m., long route executed, C-store, forecourt, diner, motel, C-store, eyes on pylon throughout, 0 forward steps. PA, unauthorized voice attempts, family ignored. Jukebox, unscheduled track persisted, 70 seconds, evac maintained. Number 17, door open, no entry. Peephole fog and exhale event, / counting hand behind jam observed in legacy flash. Audit tape, repeated line S. Whitaker, Night Auditor, 100 to 110 for greater than 9 feet. Drawer locked. At 4:12 the jukebox quit. The number 17 door shut with the patience of an old man standing. The PA breathed a brand-safe thank you that did not include a name. The ice case caught its breath. And the compressor landed on the note you can live with. The pylon didn't click. We turned around together, because there's no glory in a solo on this stage. The counter had paper spilling off it like intestines in a photograph. You keep in a drawer so your brain will give you bad dreams in an orderly fashion. I tore a foot of S. Whitaker and folded it into my pocket where Gus's cross lived. I clocked out under the IC because I'm married to my habits. The strip read Whitaker S. 4:19 a.m. The machine printed 3 more for me without my hand. Lori didn't try to fix the ledger. She tapped the cover closed and pressed the palm of her hand against it, the way you press a chest to feel for breath. She smiled in the freezer glass, and the smile came half a beat late and then matched up. See you tonight, Mr. Whitaker. The parking lot smelled like wind that had run out of miles. The interstate hummed like a prayer. The earth tells itself to not split. My Camry chirped. I sat with the dome light off. The dash clock says 12:30 even when I tap it. The pylon outside holds 3 half flipped. I write this with my shoulder burning cold where the freezer set its hand and with Gus's cross warm on my thigh. The boy is gone because 30 needed a body. The cook is gone because mercy has a cost here too. The audit holds my name on the line that decides who stands in which box for which minute. Tomorrow I will stand under IC when the PA remembers me. I will not answer. I will hold. I will count seams. I will refuse the door that begs like a child with candy. I will back my way out of rooms that forget what shapes they are. And one night, when the slot wants me and I am on paper for it, I will learn if standing still is a form of running. Until then, the glass will reflect me late, and I will pretend I can afford to wait for myself.